Hello, everybody. Hey, I was gonna share a fishing tale with you, if that's all right. And I went fishing yesterday, which was Saturday, the end of May. I'm not sure whatever that is. Tomorrow's Memorial Day. I've been off work this week. It's been nice. I've been doing a little fishing and stuff. I might go fishing tomorrow or something. Maybe I'll have a grill out, have some friends over or something. I don't know. But I was wanting to share a fishing tale with you, and just really excited. I've been having a rough year this year fishing. It's been kind of tough, and I don't know how. I really don't have I'm just kind of winging this. I hope I don't mess the story up too much. I don't know where to start or where to end, so I'll just tell you. There goes Daisy over there, poor thing. I'm out in the garage. It's a little warm today. But there's this fish in the lake, okay? Let's just start there. There's a fish in that lake that I like to fish. And 10 years ago, in 2012, me, my friend Tim, and another friend Chris, we went fishing, right? And it was really hot. I forget what the day, I don't know what the date was, but it was one of those really hot days. It was like 79 degrees at 6 o'clock in the morning, if that gives you any idea. It's like really hot in the morning, really hot, really muggy. And it was probably about 8 o'clock in the morning. Okay, about 8 o'clock. Me and Chris were sitting there fishing, and there was a couple trees sitting there. Chris had 2 poles, and I had 2 poles sitting there. And then all of a sudden, we're sitting there, and this big catfish just comes up and out in front of us, and it just rolls over. And a lot of times these big catfish, they'll roll over before they feed. They'll get like a little gulp of air or something, and came up. I mean, he was like this close to our bobbers. This just came right up right by our bobbers. Big old giant catfish. And I told Chris, I said, he's on the prowl. He wants to feed. I said, one of us are going to catch that fish. And Tim, he was fishing down the lake about 50 feet away from us, and he was fishing kind of close to the bank. We were right in the middle, and he was fishing close to the bank. And about 10 minutes later, Tim, he's down there. He says, "Hey, well, why don't you guys bring me a net?" Right? And Tim's one of those guys that, like, if he goes into a casino, he's going to win some money. If he plays the lotto, he's going to win. He's just one of those people that's very lucky. He's a lucky person. And so we go down there, and he's just got this little spinning rod. I think he had like 15-pound line on it. And he's fighting this fish and fighting this fish. I told Tim, I said, "That's a pretty good fish you got." So he gets it up to the bank, and I can see it's a blue cat, right? He's got this blue cat. And he comes up there. We get almost close enough to get it in the net, and man, that fish just takes off, and it runs all the way over on the other side of the lake again. It does that a couple times. One time it came up real close, and I almost could have netted it. Man, and he took off across the lake again. And Tim just looked over at me. He goes, "Brian," he was right there. Like I didn't net, like I could have netted him or something. I said, "I know, Tim." I said, "I know." He said, "He'll be back. Just take your time." I said, "We'll get him." And so Tim's playing this fish, and he gets this fish up to the side of the bank here, and the water is clear. You can see down into the water, and you can see the fish. You can see he's holding his rod, and this fish is just swimming. And there was this big, those big 55-gallon metal drums. It had blown into the lake probably years ago. And there was a drum down there. And this fish, I'm not kidding, this fish goes over to that metal drum and he's shaking his head like this. And that line's just kind of rubbing on that barrel and stuff, but he's just shaking his head like this. And I was like, I said, look at that, Tim. I said, he's trying to cut your line on that barrel. I said, try to lift it up a little bit, get it out of that barrel. So he gets it up, and then finally we net the fish, okay? And I didn't, I couldn't really tell how big it was, right? And then we pulled it up, and me and Chris, Chris is a big guy. And me and Chris pulled this fish out. It's a big, I was like, holy cow, man, this thing's bigger than I thought, right? I was like, that's a 50-pound catfish. And so we put it in the truck, and we drove it up. They got a scale at the bait house. So we put it in the back of the truck and drove it up to the bait house, right? This thing was 55 pounds. It was a big catfish. I've always known that fish is in that lake, right? So we take it back, we put it back in the lake, okay, and then for 10 years, I've been fishing for that catfish. I've wanted that cat. It's like, why can't I catch this catfish, About every year or every other year, somebody catches this catfish, right? The last time it was caught, now check this out, it's kind of an elusive fish for me. About 4 years ago, I went out there and there was a big rainstorm coming in. And they hit really good at the rain out there. So I pull up and there's this spot that I want to fish, right? And there's this guy sitting there, and I pull it over, and it's kind of still, the rain's supposed to stop, but it's kind of raining still. And I asked this guy, I said, hey, you doing any good? This is the spot I want to fish. And this guy said, yeah. He goes, I caught a couple fish today. He goes, I got a couple big catfish. And I said, really? So, he had his cell phone, and he showed me pictures of it. He had like a 40-something pounder and a 50-something pounder. And I said, that's the fish that I'm here to catch. And I'm like, well, hell, I'm not going to catch it. If he just caught this fish just, right before I got here, I said, I'm not going to catch this fish. And then about 2 years ago, I was out there fishing, and the fish were biting real good. And I was catching fish, but I was like, oh. And this one guy comes over and he's talking to me, and hey, you doing any good? Blah, blah, blah. He just pulled in. I said, I'm getting ready to leave. And I told him, I said, we're catching them on, we're catching them on this bait. I told him what bait we're catching them on. So this guy goes over and he gets that bait. Well, the next time I go out there fishing, there's that guy that I was talking to, and he had caught that 50-something pound catfish after I left. And that was like a couple years ago. It's just so discouraging. I'm like, why can't I catch this fish? And the last day last year fishing, I went out there and I brought a big skipjack. Skipjack was about that big, and I chopped it up, and I was using big old pieces of skipjack, and I ended up breaking my line on a big catfish, right? I broke my line on a big cat, and I'm thinking, man, that was probably him. That was probably him. And that was last fall. They were getting ready. It was getting ready to close. They were going to close the place down. And then about 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, there was these guys out there, and they caught that fish again. And I said, well, hell, I'm not going to catch it this year. These guys just caught it. And that was a couple weeks ago. So Saturday morning, I got up about 4 o'clock in the morning Saturday. And, my last live stream, I don't know if you guys watched it or not. My last live stream, I went out there, and my bait wasn't that good. I had this old bait. Okay, we'll just call it old bait for the sake of argument. It was old, And the fish really weren't hitting it. It was kind of nasty. And catfish, they really like fresh bait. And yesterday I said, I'm going to get some fresh bait. Before I go out there, I'm going to get me some really good bait that's fresh. So I went to the bait shop and I bought some live bait. I said, I want some live bait. I'm not going to tell you what it was, because people are watching my videos, my fishing videos now. But, so I get out there yesterday. Or I was on my way. Okay, let's get it right. I was on my way out there. I was driving out there. It was still dark out. And I turned on, when I first started my car up, there was a Led Zeppelin was playing on the radio, right? Led Zeppelin. And I'm like, wow, man, what a great tune, man. This kind of, I started feeling a good vibe, you know. I'm like, wow, this is Led Zeppelin, man. So I start feeling like, you know, I'm kind of a spiritual person, right? You know what I mean? It's like silly. I know it's silly, but I'm a spiritual type person. So Led Zeppelin's playing on their stuff, and I'm driving down the road. And I said, you know what? When I went out there, okay, I've been using this rod. Let me show you. I've been using this rod this year. I've got 2 of these rods. They're my St. Croix. Got an Abu on there. And I've been using these rods. And another thing I wanted to do is I wanted to change it up. I was like, stop using the bait you've been using, and stop using the rods that you use, right? So I was like, I've got a rod, and every big catfish I ever caught, this is silly, I know this is silly, but this is a true story. Every big catfish I ever caught, I've caught on this one rod. So I was sitting there thinking, why haven't I brought that out there? I need to take my I call it my big cat rod. I said, I need to take my big cat rod out there and use it. I said, because if I'm going to catch a big cat, it's going to be on my big cat rod. I said, for whatever reason. So I threw my big cat rod in, which is this rod right here. It's a star rod. I actually broke it. I broke it on I caught a 38-pound catfish one time, and I broke the rod. What I did was when I went to set the hook, I smacked one of my rod holders, and I snapped the rod in two. About a few years ago, and I took it over to the tackle shop, and those guys are really good about fixing stuff, and they actually repaired it for me. They actually put it back together. And that rod it's as tough now as it's ever been. It's a star rod. It's an American-made rod, and it's got an Abu Garcia reel. And my son actually bought me this reel, I think for Christmas one year. Okay, and it says Catfish on it. It's a Catfish Pro reel. Okay, it's Abu Garcia Catfish Pro reel. So I had that in there. So I'm driving. Okay. I'm driving Led Zeppelin and stuff. And I said, you know what? I'm going to say a little prayer. I'm going to say a little prayer when I'm going out there this morning, right? Because when I go fishing, a lot of times I'll say a prayer. You know, I pray. You know, I know I'm not perfect, but I still feel like, you know, I'm one of God's children, you know. So I started praying while I was driving down the road. Led Zeppelin went off. And I just said, you know, Lord, I've had a rough year. You know, I was like, it would be nice to catch a big fish today. I said, I fished and fished and fished. And I said, this big fish just doesn't seem like I can catch this thing. Everybody else is catching this big fish, and I can't catch it. I said, help me to be patient. You know, I started praying that. I said, God, help me to be patient so I can catch this fish, stuff like that. And I started thinking about that. You know, whenever you pray for patience, you got to be careful when you pray for patience, because whenever you pray for patience, you always have to go through some, like, trial or something, you know. So I was sitting there thinking about that, and I said, Lord, I don't want patience. I said, I just want a big fish. I said, Lord, I don't want no patience. I want a big fish. You know what I mean? So I kind of changed my prayer. I said, you know, I thank you for everything you've done for me. You know, I just thank God for the time that I have to go fishing and all this stuff. I know it sounds silly. It might sound a little greedy, but I just think you should pray about different things. So I was driving down the highway, and I was getting off of the highway to get, to the street that goes over to the lake. And it was funny because Guns N' Roses' "Patience" comes on the radio, right? So he starts singing this Guns N' Roses "Patience" song, and I start laughing, right? I'm starting to laugh. I'm like, God, you got a sense of humor. I said, that's pretty funny. So I'm sitting there laughing about that. I'm thinking, God's definitely here, and he's definitely messing with me a little bit today, So anyway, I pull off. I go into the lake. Ross and them, they're sleeping. I didn't wake Ross up. And, Ross knows me well enough. He knows I'm not going to rob him or anything, rip him off, or do anything that I'm not supposed to do. So I just drive on back to my spot, right? There's a couple people at the lake. So I drive back to my spot. And I pulled out one of my bait. One of my fresh bait that I brought, and I was going to be fishing with this woman named Lisa. She was going to come out and fish with me, right? So she comes pulling in about that time I got there, and I put the bait on my pole, and I throw my pole out in the lake, right? And I threw this one out. So I walk over to the car, and it's probably been out for about a minute, maybe a minute or two. And me and her sitting there talking and stuff. And I grab my other rod out of the car, and I'm getting ready to get my other rod ready. Then all of a sudden, I hear my clickers. These rods, they got clickers on. Let me give you a demonstration. They got these clickers on them. So it's like when the fish hits it, it makes a clicking noise, right? They call that a bait clicker. Here. So all of a sudden, that rod just takes off and the clicker starts pulling. And I only have one rod in. We're trying to get things set up. So I run over there and I pick the rod up and I set the hook. And I'm pulling on this fish. And he doesn't really feel that big at first, He doesn't feel that big. And he starts running down this way. He starts going way down the lake, going out to the right. And I told Lisa, I said, grab the net. I said, I think this is a little bigger fish than normal. And then he comes back and he starts running down this way in the lake. But he doesn't feel like a real big fish. At that point, I knew he was a nice fish, but I didn't know how big he actually was. So I get him up probably about, 50 feet away from the bank. Then all of a sudden I could feel him shaking his head. And then I knew I had a big fish. I was like, this is a big fish, right? And I'm pulling this thing, and man, he comes up and just rolls over. Just comes out of the water and just rolls over and just starts splashing his tail. And I was like, this is a big fish, And so I'm fighting this thing, and I'm like, God, just don't come off my hook, Don't come off my hook. And I was explaining to Lisa, she never had netted a fish like this before. I said, just take the net. I said, just get his head in the net and just kind of hold the net up. And I said, he'll go into the net. So we get it up there. It took me about 15 minutes to get it up there. And she got it up there and netted it. And I pulled it up. And I knew he was a big fish. I didn't know which fish it was because Ross has been putting a lot of fish in his lakes. He put a 61, he put a 51, and a 41 in this year. And I already caught the 41 this year. But I knew that this fish wasn't the 41. I knew this fish was bigger than that. So I just left the net in the water with the fish in the water, right? and I could see he was big, but I didn't know which fish it was. So I went over, got my phone, and I explained to Lisa. I said, "This is what we're going to do." I said, "We're going to pull it out. We'll take a couple pictures of the fish, and we'll put it back in the lake." I said, "I don't like them to be out of the water very long at all, you know." So I pulled it out of the water, and immediately I knew that I had a big, you know, I thought this might be the fish. So I had a scale. I had a digital scale in my car to weigh the fish. So I go over and I get the scale, and I pulled it up, and it was like almost 59 pounds, right? It was almost 59 pounds on the scale, but my net weighs 3 pounds, okay? So it was like 56 pounds. And I knew then, I was like, this is the fish that I've been fishing for over 10 years. You know, I've been wanting to catch this fish. Ever since Tim caught this fish, I've been wanting to catch this fish, right? So I caught that fish yesterday, and I'm telling you what, man, it's, you know, whether you're spiritual, you believe in praying and all this stuff, or God's got a sense of humor, or personal, or all these things, you know, but I do. You know, I do. And I just wanted to tell you guys a fishing story. I'll put a picture of the fish at the end of the video just to show you that I caught it. He was about 56 pounds. And I just got a picture of him laying there on the bank with me sitting there, and immediately I put it back. So thanks for watching. There's a fish tail, and you know, I'm very excited and happy, you know, to fish for a fish for 10 years and to finally catch it. Now I can start focusing on trying to catch me a big carp this year. All right, man. Check out the picture. Thanks for hanging out. I'm out of here.